video that is pretty much a continuation, I guess, from my video Read These If You Feel Lost, except this is Watch These Things If You Feel Alone. So these are films that I have watched when I feel alone, and I guess that in that sense they're my comfort films. I have loads more of comfort films, but these are the best for when you're feeling alone. And if you didn't know, I'm a film student. I'm also, well, I guess an author, I don't know. And I want to be a filmmaker and things like that. So some of these might be stupid for a film student to suggest, and some won't be. So let's get into it. Also, they're not all films. Some are shows, and I will go into depth about each one, hopefully. So the first one, everybody knows, I'm gonna say it. Call Me By Your Name. I'm sorry, I said it, it's happened, okay? It was, yeah. So Call Me By Your Name is the one film that I willingly will watch again and again and again. The thing for me is, like, I can't watch repeats of things unless it's like Friends, you know, like soft comedies, I guess, like Friends, and like right now I'm watching Everybody Loves Raymond, and you know, things like that. I cannot watch like films on repeat, but Call Me By Your Name is the one that I can watch every time. I think the thing about Call Me By Your Name is that it is so relatable to me, in the sense that I am a young bisexual who, I don't know how to put it into words, I guess. I think Elio is just extremely relatable to me. You know, he's very emotional and stubborn, and you know, he just wants to experience love, I guess. And I think it's such a beautiful, pure form of a love story, in my opinion at least. And it was the film that projected me into wanting to be a film student, and wanting to make films and write films and things like that. So it has a lot of meaning to me, which I guess is why it's such a big deal to me and why I can watch it so often. I just think that if you are feeling alone, you kind of wanna either watch films where people aren't alone and where like love is like the main thing, I guess, because you kind of want to live vicariously through them. And I think this is like the greatest one for that. If you haven't seen it, I'm gonna spoil it, so fast forward like 30 seconds. But the fact that at the end Oliver is getting married to someone else, you know, these things do happen so often in real life, and you know, the missed love and the, you know, circumstances that get in the way. And I just think the fact that it's so beautiful and heartbreaking, but so loving and realistic, I just think it's so great to live vicariously through. And if you are heartbroken and that's why you want to watch a love film, then this is great, because you watch Elio kind of go through that heartbreak too, in a sense, and it's comforting in that way. So the next film, this is one of my favorites. It's a comfort film, Lost in Translation. I really love this film. I think that it is quite slow and not a lot happens. So if you're someone who needs something to like continuously happen for them to enjoy a film, it's probably not for you. But the entire film is actually about two lonely people and how they come together and like leave that loneliness, I guess. And it's confusing at times, because you don't know if they're in love or you don't know if it's a friendship, and it's an ambiguous film, but it's so comforting to watch because it's so relatable. That silence, that loneliness, that all of that is so relatable. And I just think that if you feel alone, watching these two lonely people find a type of love, you know, like a friendship as well, is so comforting and heartwarming. And I love Scarlett Johansson. She is the reason behind why I like women. I wish I was joking. Like, I really wish I was joking. I had a crush on her since I was like 12, and when the first Avengers movie came out, I got a pillow with all of them on it, but she's on it, and I got it for her, and I still have the pillow. And the first film I'm gonna see in cinemas after a year and a half of COVID next week is Black Widow. So I'm not joking, she is quite literally the reason behind it. But anyways, I love Bill Murray because if you didn't know, I'm a Wes Anderson stan, and he's part of the original Wes Anderson cast. So I love them both. It's great. It's a great cast. It has a bit of humour, and I think it's directed by Sofia Coppola. So it's a woman-directed film, which is a bonus, of course. So yeah, I think it's a great film for me. I think it's if everything is busy and you feel lonely, it's a great film to watch, you know? I think if you want something that happens all the time, I guess Call Me By Your Name is a little bit better for you to watch. So the next movies, I guess, that I suggest is the Before trilogy. So Before Sunset, Before Sunrise, and Before... It's starring Ethan Hawke and I forgot her name, something Delphi, I can't remember her name. It's basically about a girl and a guy, and they meet on a train, and they don't know anything about each other. They spend one day together, they fall in love, and they plan to meet next year in a particular place if neither of them have found somebody else. That's in the first film. Spoilers if you don't know what happens in the next ones or don't want to know, so fast forward again. But in the next film, it's like 10 years later, and they didn't meet because her grandma died, and he didn't know that, so he assumed that she had met someone else, and at this point it's obviously 10 years later, so they didn't have each other's numbers or anything. He's married with a kid and she's with someone as well. And they spend a day together, and then in the last one, again, spoilers, they are married with kids, and it's almost about the deterioration of their relationship, but then like right at the very end, an attempt to save it. It's a confusing trilogy, but what I love about the Before trilogy is that it's slow again. Usually I don't like slow movies, but these seem to be very comforting. It's slow in the sense that there's no cuts really, so the conversations they have, especially in the second one, I don't think there's like a single cut in the second one. They have in real time, so that hour they spend together, we see the entire hour or like 2 hours, and each conversation, you know, like we see all of it in real time. If that, I hope I'm making sense. And it's just very deep conversations, and it's such an almost unrealistic script because it's so intellectual and smart and deep the entire time. But it is lovely to watch when you're lonely because they're strangers and they were lonely, and you're finding them at the pinnacle of their loneliness, and then how they escape that loneliness and this connection that they've had that doesn't even die over 10 years, and how they get to where they want to get to, you know, being married and having kids, to the deterioration, to the fights, to the realism of some relationships, and then them still trying because they love each other. I think it's really beautiful, and also I feel like each film is like almost 2 hours, so if you watch each one it's like 6 hours, and if you're lonely that's a good amount of time in a day to take up, you know? So the next one is actually a show. I'm sure most people have heard of it, but it is called Feel Good. It has Mae Martin in it, who is a comedian, and her character is Mae Martin as well. She basically is this codependent, anxious, attached human being that falls in love quite easily, but she falls in love with this girl, and a lot of things happen, and there's 2 seasons. I think it's on Netflix. If you're in the UK, it's on Netflix. What I absolutely loved about Feel Good is how relatable it was, because it was just entirely relatable. Even if you aren't gay, it is the most relatable thing in the world, because Mae Martin, like I said, has an anxious attachment style. I have an anxious attachment style. It is so interesting to watch someone else with your attachment style and how they get through it, because the amount of breakdowns she has, the meds she goes on, the bad things she does, it's so relatable, because you don't want to have that attachment style, yet you do, and you're trying to figure your way out of it and trying to make your relationship healthy when you have a negative attachment style. But her partner at the beginning, especially in season 1, is avoidant, and so they're complete opposites in their attachment styles, until I'd say the end of season 1, where they both kind of have an attachment to each other, and it becomes more equal, I'd say. But yeah, they go through breakups, they go through, you know, arguments, they go through everything that it happens in real life, and I will say there's a lot about drugs and addiction, and also sexual assault, and just kind of like everything under the sun. And that's what I love about it, because it touches on everything in such a realistic way. It's not like these shows like 13 Reasons Why and Riverdale, obviously, but where they touch on things for the sake of touching on things and being depressing. It's just really realistic. Like, again, spoilers, I'm sorry, I just have to go into depth. Mae Martin remembers that, like, she kind of gets hit with this realization that when she was young, she lived with this guy who she considers like a best friend in a sense, and yet they were together, but she was like 13 and he was like 20 something, I believe, and she realizes that actually it was assault, and a lot of it just wasn't okay, and she had almost like this memory loss from it because it was traumatic. And that's so realistic. Like, we actually do go through a lot of memory loss, like even with our childhood memories, purely because our trauma makes us forget it. So it's so perfectly done. It's so relatable and humorous at the same time, and there's something happening in every episode, and you know, even Mae Martin herself, she does shit that you would regret, and she self-sabotages, and that's just also so normal, especially for someone with an anxious attachment style. Like, I know self-sabotage like the back of my hand, because you see that as the only way out of having this attachment style, if that makes sense. So yeah, 100% recommend. I also actually interviewed a musician that was on the soundtrack, Paul Thomas. I'll link it down below. He was really lovely, and it was really cool to kind of be in touch with someone that was part of the process. So yeah, the next show is actually a cartoon. Now, I love cartoons. I've watched so many, even kids cartoons, because they are so comforting and like easy. So this one that I'm going to speak about is called Midnight Gospel. And other ones that I would recommend that I won't go into depth right now is obviously Adventure Time. There's one called Close Enough, and I watched one a few years ago that was called like 13 or 12 or something, can't remember exactly. That one is a kid show, but the other ones are like adult cartoons-ish, you know, like, you know, they've got like deeper meanings, I guess, and in Close Enough there's swearing, things like that, you know, but it's very light. It's very like, there's a moral of every story kind of thing. But the reason that I am suggesting Midnight Gospel is because it is all about, in a sense, this spirituality behind things. So each one it's so mind-boggling. Like, the cartoon itself almost has no relation to what they're talking about. Like, one episode is about death and the afterlife and the fear of death, and the entire thing will be like them killing zombies, or like I don't even know, like clowns or something. Like, just random things will be happening, weird random things will be happening, and it has no relation to what they're talking about. So yeah, it's very deep and it's a lot to take in. So if it's like done in a very light way, it's very smart, it's very easy to watch, and it's very like, it's full of a lot of knowledge, and it's really great to listen to. But if you are like, I cannot take anything too deep right now, I would definitely watch the other ones like Close Enough and things like that, because they're funny. Oh, also Tuca and Birdie, which is really funny. I love Tiffany Haddish so much, and she voices like the main character. So yeah, just cartoons are really easy for you when you feel alone, and I think like Midnight Gospel especially has a lot of lessons that it's trying to teach you, you know, about like heartbreak and loss and fears and the universe and birth and just everything, you know. I think it only has one season, and I think there's only like 8 episodes, and it's really easy to watch, but definitely recommend that. So the next one I recommend is a film. It is called Her. Her is a film that I wanted to watch for a few years, and I only got around to it about a month and a bit ago, and I have no regrets. Her is such an incredible film. It stars Joaquin Phoenix, Rooney Mara, Amy Adams, you know, a great cast. And it's basically about the future, and in this future, people have AI systems like Siri, except they have emotions and can actually have real conversations with you. So it's like a person within your technology, and it's quite futuristic in that sense, but it's so gorgeous to look at as well. The film is just beautiful. So it's about this guy who's getting a divorce and very lonely, and he basically falls in love with his AI system, and she falls in love with him, and that's voiced out by Scarlett Johansson actually. And they fall in love with each other, and everyone has like this ability to like fall in love with their AI system. So it's like not a weird thing, it's like normalized in this film, I guess, you know, like everyone's kind of falling in love with their AI system. But what's so great about this film is that it portrays this connection without actually meeting someone, and how like incredible and strong their emotions are for each other, and how you can find comfort and connection in anything. But also, spoiler, I'm sorry, I have to, at the end all AI systems kind of get like deactivated, and it's about how like temporary that love was, but how real it was at the same time, and like no one knows what to do now. But then at the very end, he sits on the roof with his friend, who is played by Amy Adams, and she's also gone through a divorce. And it's like, you know, it was like almost the string that pulled them closer together, I guess, in a sense. It's such a beautiful film, and it was so comforting, and it was quite long, and I was glad it was long, because actually it wasn't slow, and a lot happened, and so it was pretty easy to watch, and it has a stunning soundtrack, genuinely so stunning. And yeah, I just 100% worth watching, because I think a lot of us will relate to this idea of having like internet friends, which obviously isn't the same thing, but like, you know, you're not being able to see these people, and with COVID, you know, we haven't been able to see everyone, and it's just like these connections built without physical contact, and that loneliness as well. It's just so worth watching, and I 100% recommend it. The next film is another cartoon, but it's a film, not a series, and it's Soul. Soul is the latest, I believe. No, the latest is Luca, I think. Pixar Disney film. I watched this, I'd say 3 months ago, and it was so lovely. It's such a lovely film. I've always loved and adored and found comfort in Pixar Disney films. On my self-care day, like 2 months ago, I watched Ratatouille whilst I was in the bath eating McDonald's. So, you know. Postman? Hey, wait a minute, Mr. Postman! But it's, again, it's similar into Midnight Gospel in the sense that it has this moral of the story kind of theme, and it's about spirituality as well. And I'm spiritual, I'm a spiritualist, I'm a tarot reader as well, so I heavily relate to it, and I watched it at a time where I was very low, and it was so comforting to watch, and it just made me, you know, genuinely get outside of my depression bubble for like an hour and a bit. So I'm sure everyone knows about that one because it also won awards this year. Yeah, it was incredible. I loved it. The last one is actually funny and like not what you'd probably expect in this list, but it is Bo Burnham's special Inside. The thing about this movie that basically just came out when I'm filming this, and yes, my hair is wet again, guys, I told you, I shower and I'm like, I need to film. Sorry. What was good about this is that it was based on real events, so his experience throughout quarantine and random things like white women's Instagram and how his friends are married and having kids and he isn't. So again, it's like this loneliness that we've all experienced in quarantine during COVID, but also the collective loneliness of growing up and not achieving the same things as other people. And it's obviously a comedy special, so it's very satire and it's very, he sings. If you don't know who Bo Burnham is, he sings. So he's made like so many songs in this film, and it's quite funny, and it's light to watch and it's fun to watch, and it's also relatable. So I think like that's why it was really good for me to watch, because I was like, oh, I completely like relate to some of it. And obviously it was based on like the loneliness being inside and it being called Inside. So those are my films and shows you should watch if you're feeling alone. To be honest, I have a lot more, but I'll do that for another video if you guys enjoy this. I hope to see you guys in my next video. I love you and I hope you have a great week.